Good afternoon. So now I'm going to have a front-end interview, for a UK location. So let's see what question they ask. I bring you real interviews from across the world. So if you want to crack or get the next job, don't forget to join, subscribe. Don't tell anybody. Let me get a piece of paper. Hi.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Praveen, how are you?
Hi, how are you? Let me get a paper.
Great, thank you. Thanks for coming to join us.
No problem.
So yeah, this is just the first interview. Just to get to know you, just ask you about some of your work you've done, what you enjoy, your skills, etc. And then also we'll give you a chance to ask any questions that you want to know from us that we can tell you. Yourself if you want to say anything extra, and then Praveen as well. You're welcome to say anything about yourself.
No, you can go ahead, Praveen.
Yeah, no, nice to know. And I will say, like, you guys launched the company right on the time, right before the COVID. Did you guys know that COVID is coming? Like virtual events, like it's like a perfect match. Okay.
No. As I said, we've also got other things that are waiting for the right time to come out as well. So
Okay,
no.
No problem. Yeah, so let me introduce, like, as you know, I'm Praveen. So I'm a front-end specialist. Like, I've been working in front-end technology for like almost 10 years now. Like even before that, I was making the face. So basically, I love making, like, I call myself the face of the organization because of the front end. That's the you get to see. That's what excite me. It's not like a back end. Like I know you guys are full stack developer, but I like more front end stuff because I can feel it, you can see it, and you can get instant feedback. Like especially Angular and React these days, you make one change, boom, it shows up automatically. If there's error, it shows up right there in the console window. If there's a compilation, it shows it. So it has become a lot easier than we started. So that's what I love. Like I love front end, like HTML5, CSS, and obviously front end is maturing a lot, especially HTML5 now. Like Flash and other software is gone. We can just do animation or movie right in the browser, and that's pretty much it. And from client perspective, I have a top end client. I work with top end, small client, a mix of both the client. I'm a contractor, so whichever comes my way, I just take it. So yeah, I can go through my project list if you want me to explain further, but that's pretty much like I'm a front end expert, like creating the face of the organization. Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I know. Appearances these days are everything.
Yeah, and it keeps changing, right? So yeah.
Using a product.
Yeah, that's because no matter how powerful your backend API is, it doesn't matter if you can't expose it to user, and if your front end is not usable, it look clunky. Now forget about usable. These days users are so finicky. Like they didn't like something, they will suddenly not use. Like how does one button or not a button makes a product good or bad? But that's how customer perspective is, because I think they are used to this iPhone and Facebook culture, which keeps bringing all this cutting edge technology. Like they keep experiment. Like Facebook is a social, right? They want to interact, and so they keep experiment. And obviously everybody is using this social media these days and every iPhone features, and these like, hey, why doesn't this site I can do so, and it gets done? Why doesn't this guy I have to type 5 things before I get done anything? And you get a frustration built in.
Yeah. I know exactly where you're coming from. What you explained.
So the user expect everything to be very easy and like don't want to type anything, like like as if like, okay, do this, done. That's one. Because I think it's getting that attitude of getting more callous and not do work. Just sit and watch. Instead of being the driver's seat.
Yeah. Cool. Basically, I just got a couple of kind of categories just to ask you. and your strengths, etc. with it, and if you prefer it or not, and maybe what tools you've used to.
I've used visuals. Yeah,
etc.
I use Visual Studio, like the Visual Studio, but I've also used Eclipse, Notepad. So that's another advantage of front end technology. It's actually tool agnostic. It doesn't really matter what tool you use. It can pretty much do in a Notepad. Even you don't even need a development environment these days. You can do Angular and front end right on a SaaS platform. Like it has a platform. You say create a new app, it creates it for you. It gives you all the code. You say new file, create the new file on the server, deploys it on the server. So you could do development right on a browser with a phone if you want, and or you can do it in on the so usually I use Visual Studio. Obviously companies are not mature that to have development environment on the many do that, like in many secure, like I've worked for many government organization where I have a security clearance hold, so they prefer not to even save their code in my local disk, right, because of the security. And so we have to log into the system, and you can't log in before 9 o'clock. It's very strict timing, 9 to 6. That's the only timing you are allowed in, and you go there, log in, test there, and after that you sign off, and that's it. You never get to see the code yourself. You see it on the browser, like want to browse. So yeah, they it's like especially for. So that's the tool I use. And what was the other question you asked? Sorry.
Basically, don't worry. I just got some general questions.
Okay, just go ahead. Yeah, just go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead and compare you against other guys, etc.
Yeah, no
Basically,
problem.
for your UI UX design, you seem pretty passionate about that. Yeah, I was going to ask if you enjoy it. It sounds like you really do. And basically, how long have you been designing interfaces for people? And just maybe what tools you prefer to use.
Like Visual Studio is good. I prefer open source. So Visual Studio is not open source, but it's free. So that's the plus point. Like I earlier used to like Eclipse and others because it was open source, but it really doesn't matter. It's a tool. So as I said, I use Visual Studio. I've been using front end for, as I said, like last 10 years. Like even before this technology came, like Angular and React, I was using front end. Like we were still having HTML, and remember those GSP and ASP, right? I've used even those technology. Yeah, and if you see, the world has become a circle. The GSP technology, what we're talking about, is actually what we are talking now. Like it's kind of Angular is kind of GSP, except that Angular, the code is running on your browser. JSP, the code was running in the backend. So it's kind of it's the same thing but painted in a different. Like other than it's just the look and feel which has changed in last 10 years. I will say there's not much innovation apart from HTML5 and CSS3, right? Obviously CSS language is maturing, JavaScript is maturing. Now we have TypeScript, like it's more tightly cast, like we have error checking, a better tool integration. Like I don't need to do anything now. I can just say one and it actually tells me what to do. Right? Earlier days, JavaScript was very, very difficult. I didn't know, like, it was black and white and you type it and then run it and check it. Does it work? Now I don't. Yeah.
Yeah.
And plus, I will say there is a lot of tools available because Angular, React, jQuery, everything is free. So what has this resulted in? Like there is almost like thousands of open source projects. So no matter what you want in UI, it's literally done by somebody. All you have to do is integrate. If you need a date component, you don't have to write a date component. You just integrate. If you need a graph component, you don't have to write it. Open source available, download it and use it. So literally 90. So we now end up 95% is just integration work and 5% making it sure that it fits your look and feel.
Yeah. Have you used design tools like Adobe XD or anything like that?
Means earlier we used to use like Adobe, a lot of UX tools, right? But these days we don't need to use it.
Yeah, you can just prototype directly on the website.
Yeah, that's what I said. Like and again, and plus I have a component library. So earlier days I didn't have a component library. Now I have like Angular material is there. Plus even apart from that, they are like. I myself have thousands of components available. So if I need something, I'll rather start from what is there and let the user give the feedback. So if I show them something, like first of all, if they accept what I show them, I'm saving development time by 99%, right? Because it's an existing component. right? If I come up with something, I'm spending time coming up with something, and then the users will still say, oh, I don't like this. UX is one of the worst thing you can imagine. Right? I have been in customer meeting, right? And like 20 people sitting from various, but I want it to move right. I want it to move right. I said, and man, you want right? So I usually want customer to come in a meeting and decide right there. You want right or left? Decide now. You both are here. You like, and there's sometimes the ego play also. Like department, like accounting say, So we let them user drive it and agree on a artifact, even though, and then we go. So earlier days we were using tools, but it would be very clunky. You have to make a presentation, but if a user asks to change anything, it's very difficult. Now we can do it on the fly. Say, can you move it up? Yeah, just hold a minute. Done. And oh yeah, I like it. So we get the decision faster now because we can. Otherwise, UX is one of the worst. Like I have spent earlier months to get approval. I will make something, they will come with 5 reviews. I'll review those, make done and dusted. Next time they come, you know what? I think now earlier was better. Can you reverse it? And they will find 5 more new things.
Yeah, that's happened a lot. Yeah.
So I've done a lot of UX work with. I have a strategy how to get customer getting approved. So if you get me, that's one of the thing. I don't want spending time discussing what you want. I present them the best of the industry. Like give them something very nice and they will like. And if they like, they will say okay. And there will still be some changes. There will be some guy who's still old age, doesn't like this swipey thing or doesn't like this fancy thing. So they will say, I don't like it. We get them agreement. Do you want it? Do you don't want it? You want it? Good, no problem. So if we can do it right away, we do it. Otherwise, we just take a note and we only discuss next meeting. We only discuss those review points. And we may not even have a review point. Whoever raised the point, like I will put an action point against that person, like A, B, C to review point 1, C, C, C to review point 2. And if they're happy, we just close the ticket. From UX perspective. Not from UI perspective. We still have to integrate with backend and the REST services and other stuff. But at least from the UX perspective and UI perspective and the look and feel perspective. And another problem we face is like now we have so many, you could have a browser, like you could have a desktop, and then you have a laptop, which is a different screen size. And then you have a tablet, which is again a different screen size. And then you have a mobile, which is again a different, and then you have a watch. And people want to assess the site in all across and they want to consist. And that's where another challenge is like, how do you want the look and feel to happen in this 5 different, from this size to this big, right? It cannot have the same look and feel, So we have to get agree. Like first of all, do you really want watch? No, okay, let's remove it. Watch, you can still use it in the watch. We still follow this what we call fluid design pattern. Like it will still work on the watch. You can still use it automatically, right? It may not be the way you want it. It will still work. Like that's what our first intention is to getting working in no matter which environment you use. The UX may not match what you expect, right? It will be following a general industry standard, like, fluid design, responsive design. And if you say, I wanted it and mobile and desktop, we will agree on both design. Like, okay, this is how it looks in desktop. This is how it looks in mobile. Are you happy with it? Lock it up. Yeah. Sorry, I'm talking too much.
No, it's good. No, I could hear myself in some of those things as well, so don't worry. And then front-end dev, etc. like that. You mentioned you're pretty experienced with Angular.
Mm-hmm.
How long you've been using it for? All the versions or?
I think I've been using Angular from version 1 to version 9. So I was there when they started. Then and there was a lot of hoopla about like why did they change everything on version 2. So I've been in many migration projects where they didn't wanted to migrate. So I've done a couple of migration projects from 1 to 2, and then obviously 2 to 9 is pretty easy. So it's not difficult. If you develop in 2, it will more or less run in 9. It's not seamless. You will still see some especially compilation error you will see, but not running error, right? They do cynically remove some things and without telling us. Sometimes it stopped working for strange reason because of the dependency changes. But otherwise, it's more or less 2 to 9 is workable. Like you might have to change 1 or 2 parameter here and there, and especially when they upgrade it, again, that's open source. Another advantage, you Google it, probably somebody else also has faced the same problem, right? And you will say, hey, I did this and it fixed it. So that's another advantage of using open source tool like React and Angular, because there is so many people using it. Like before you face the problem, somebody else has already faced that problem, and you can get the solution much faster.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And then with Angular, have you used RxJS and Redux?
Yes, we have used both of them. Yeah, RxJS as well as Redux. Yeah, I can explain when we use it, but unless you want it.
No, it's fine. How comfortable are you with RxJS?
I am good, because especially it gives you a lot of features, converting normal programming to streaming, and so it's pretty good actually, so it gives you a lot of stuff which you were manually doing or have to write of code. It's RxJS is nothing but a utility library, so it is there as a tool. If it benefits you, you use it. If it doesn't, then don't use it. Like similarly Redux, right? It's an optional package. It's don't have to use it. So yeah, but it makes your life easier. So it makes sense, like people who doesn't know Rx, to do a tutorial in Rx so that you know the feature of, so that, because unless you don't know what features are available, you will be ending up doing all this logic yourself, streaming yourself, and sorting yourself. You don't want to do, right? That's what I said. Before you start the project, always list down what you want, and before you write a new component, search what the world is doing. This is a learning exercise, right? It's not like you are not doing things in a vacuum, right? There are like Angular conferences happening. Like even if you can't attend in, those conference videos are still available on YouTube or other Vimeo and other stuff, right? So as a contractor, right, as a top-end consultant, what we do, we keep watching this. So we know upfront, like, hey, what is coming up and why it is coming up. So if you attend these conferences, they tell you exactly why Google is coming up with this new feature and what new features are coming in the future as well. So not only they cover what new feature they are releasing, but they also cover what may come in for 2 years down the line. So there's an advantage on this. So I always keep up to date with all latest happening. Not that I have to use it. I don't want to. One of my principles is, if your application is running and a customer is happy, don't touch it. Even if Google say, oh, this is the fanciest thing of the world, don't touch it. Don't fall for it. Don't do the change unless it comes from the business. Only if it helps the user, then only do the change. And that's the advantage of open source. Now we can choose when to upgrade our software. Like earlier we were forced by Microsoft, like, hey, Visual Studio 5 is no longer supported, you have to, and everybody was having, like, every 3 years there was an upgrade project. They developed some software, and before they even could release the software, there's an upgrade project going on. Now we don't have to do that. If the requirement matches, even if it is using Angular 3 or Angular 1, for even, doesn't matter. If customer is happy, if it's meeting the business need, don't touch it. You can integrate it. That's another advantage of our software today. Like we can integrate Angular 1, React, Angular 5, and even like jQuery, Dojo, whatever library, because they can all work in parallel. We are not saying, like, sometimes you will feel the pain, right? Hey, I'm supporting 5 platforms, right? Then is a business requirement, like, hey, it makes sense, like, okay, let's get away with Dojo, one of the old technology, because now it's becoming like, it's becoming a hindrance. Like sooner or later you will feel that it's becoming a hindrance. Like for one support, I have to find where the hell Dojo project is, and I don't even have the tool to build it anymore, right? So you might say, let's upgrade it. Now it's the time to upgrade,
Yeah. Once I got thrown with not at the virtual lab, but was it the Google Web Toolkit? GWT, I think it was called.
Yeah, it's still there.
One of those, and I had to. Oh, that was a nightmare. And we quickly got rid of that to make something new.
Yeah, man, that's what I said. Don't touch it, but if you're feeling the pain, you plan it. Like, get rid of it. Like you make a judgment call. Am I spending 10 hours repairing it or 10 hours upgrading it? If you spend same amount of time, or even say 200%, I will upgrade to the latest, because that way you have a consistent technology, like one organization, one technology, because that will help. But unfortunately, that's not the reality. I've been worked with a top-end client, right? Like Citibank, RBS. They have freaking 500 technology in their organization. 500. Like every version of Java they're using, every version of HTML they're using, every version of JavaScript they're using. Like I said, what the hell you guys are doing? I don't understand. But yeah, I can understand. They have a history of 50 years, you know, you can't expect it. Like, you know, so you need to be little...
The thing is, a lot of our things, they're all new projects, so we try to keep up to date. Not specifically too much, but to choose just standards and stick with them.
Sounds good.
So, yeah. Yeah, we're not supporting any anarchy.
Yeah, especially new, it doesn't make sense, right? You don't want to, unless you buy, suppose you become too big and then you buy out company, right? It's a different thing, and then you buy a AI company, you know. So it depends, right? As you grow, people like Facebook didn't become Facebook on day one, right? They acquired WhatsApp. They still left the WhatsApp as it is. Like Microsoft acquired Hotmail. So Hotmail ran into this old infrastructure at least for 5 years before they were able to move it to the Bing architecture, you know.
Yeah.
And these are like big organizations with like thousands and thousands of developers, you know, and they are still taking time to replace the monolith application because they have bought it, you know.
Yeah, I know. I got a lot of friends in banks and what they have to deal with as well. Can't change it.
Yeah, it's difficult, you know, because it's such. I have seen in bank they don't even know how that this thing works. It works. They don't want to touch. It just works, you know. As long as nobody is in pain, nobody cares, you know.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Your other front-end experience. What I was interested in. You mentioned that you've used D3JS a lot. You've got experience in GIS and mapping. Could you tell us anything about those three?
Yep. So let's come to mapping. So mapping is basically I worked in. I will not tell which project of government because most of my projects are super secret. But it's like a mapping tool. I'll just imagine coronavirus. I'm giving an analogy. Okay. So basically, say you want to watch where coronavirus is coming, right? But suppose coronavirus were infectious, right? You know it's infectious. So, but will the wind pattern manage to change the infection pattern? So now we taking feed from meteorological department. Now you're merging layers. So if you're talking about mapping, so it's not just mapping thing. It's not like flat map what you see. Every map point is like, you know, could have richness. It could have 10 layers of data, like, you know, NO2, SO2, pollution level. And again, if you go on a map, like SO2 level, right, or pollution level, right? If you go on a map, it says population of this point is this much. Pollution is. It's actually not correct. What they are doing is they are actually approximate. So we don't have 100% data for every point of the Earth. So what we do is called, especially this is done by the GIS software. We gives the. And there's an open source geo server as well, okay, if you want to use it, right? Or there's other, you can use the Google API also if you want it, right? So you could use the paid one, or you can use there's another tool called OpenStreet, which is again very free. OpenStreet mapping, which is supported by community user as well. So once we do these things, so that's what mapping. I don't want to go much detail, but yeah. So mapping is a very, very rich environment. Like I have worked for, you know, one of my biggest clients was European Space Agency, and they were collecting. They had this Copernicus program. Like they were running 5 satellites, right? And they were freaking hell taking every, like as they were going, right, and you know how fast they go, and every point they are taking snapshot of hundreds of parameters, like, you know, temperature, city level, pollution, and hundreds of things. And it was such a vast database, like they didn't even themselves represent it. They just stored the data because I don't know, because European Space Agency takes the data for scientists, right? And as a European Space Agency, we don't know which data is useful. We don't know. We just collect the data and keep it in our database. And they were like terabytes of data. So we had to make APIs available and mapping available to customer as per customer demand. We don't know what demand. So we'll say, what do you want to watch? SO2? Okay, select SO2. And then we will dynamically generate the SO2 map for the client and give the data to them. Because we can't give them 100%. Like, you know, it will take you like 5 years to download 1 year of data. That's how big the data is, you know. If you just say, give me everything, okay, you're dead. You can never get it. So you choose what data you want and we'll filter the right data and give it to you. And this involved a bit of a backend and a front end. The geo server especially is a mapping. It's a lot of backend logic and a lot of front end logic. Front end I've done, like I've used D3 as well. Is used for what you call is simple application like representing a printer or something, a mapping, graphs. So pretty much everything follows the same. GIS is mapping, but there are other software, D3 and other stuff, which is used for still a visual representation, but very simple representation, where like a table, as I said, printer in a room.
Did you do any interactivity with D3JS?
Yeah. Come on, you can actually say I made for Xerox one project, right? Where you could actually see, like, it was a software to do your printer planning. Like big organizations have thousands of printers. They don't know why they need thousands, but they have, right? Every department just order a new printer. I need a printer. It's such a cheap thing, right? But obviously now they are moving to SaaS platform. How could printer move to SaaS platform? Like, Xerox is off. Before other company takes over, Xerox said, okay, why not we all start offering that? So we can take over the existing map, give me the map, and then we will do. So there were a lot of interactivity of moving the old technology, old way of doing Xerox management to new way.
Yeah.
That means when you move it, I can now suddenly have visibility. Like, hey, you have a floor with like 20 printer and you have a floor with one printer. Do you want to move them around? So you could actually pick the printer and move it to any other floor. And if you do that, it creates a backlog order of somebody physical, because it's not just a movement on the screen, right? Somebody has to physically do it also.